The grave was still fresh, the earth dark and damp, not yet settled. Flowers covered the mound in haphazard clusters, lilies and roses already browning at the edges. Mourners lingered in small groups, speaking in the hushed tones of people who have run out of comfort. The afternoon sun, warm and indifferent, stretched long shadows across the headstones. Sarah Bennett stood alone, her hand resting on the cold granite. She was 53, with faint lines around her eyes that deepened when she smiled, though she hadn't smiled much lately. Her thumb traced the carved name, Margaret Eleanor Bennett, as if she might still find warmth there. Her younger brother James waited at a distance beneath a cluster of oak trees. He was 47, stooped from years behind a desk, his hands buried in his pockets. He kept glancing towards Sarah, then away, wanting to approach but not knowing the right words. The rhythmic click of a cane shattered the quiet. Uncle Harold appeared, silver-haired and broad-shouldered, carrying himself with the unshakable confidence of a man who has never once been told he was wrong. His cane struck the earth like a metronome. "We'll settle the estate at my house," he announced. "The family tradition must be honored immediately." Sarah didn't turn. "Mom's barely in the ground, Uncle Harold. Tradition doesn't wait for tears. The Bennett legacy passes to the eldest son. Everyone knows that. It has been this way since before any of us were born." James shifted. "Maybe we should give it a few days. Let people grieve." "No maybes," Harold cut in. "For generations have followed this rule. Your mother understood her duty. I'll see you both at my house. Bring the attorney." He strode away, the click of his cane fading. Relatives exchanged uncertain glances, then slowly followed. Sarah watched them go, opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it. There would be time for words. There would have to be. An hour later, they gathered in Harold's dining room. The house was old, the air thick with the expectations of the dead. Portraits lined the walls, severe men in dark suits, unsmiling women with tightly pinned hair, all staring down as if daring anyone to stray from the path they had laid. Around the long table sat Sarah, James, 3 cousins, and Aunt Margaret, a soft-spoken woman who had spent 50 years agreeing with her husband because it was easier than disagreeing. At the head, Harold lowered himself into his chair with the gravity of a king. The family attorney, Ms. Kendra Shaw, sharp-eyed, unhurried, placed an unopened leather binder on the table. The seal was intact. Harold tapped the table. "Before anything is opened, let's acknowledge what's obvious. The estate. The lake house, the portfolio, the commercial building, the trust, passes to James. He is the only son. That is the Bennett tradition, unbroken for 100 years." Cousins nodded. Aunt Margaret squeezed James's hand. "Your mother would have wanted you to carry the name forward, dear." James stared at the table. Across from him, Sarah's gaze remained fixed on the unopened binder. Harold narrowed his eyes at her. "I hope you're not expecting a debate. Your mother knew her place in this lineage. So should you." The room fell silent. Ms. Shaw broke the seal. The sound tore through the stillness. "Before I read," she said, "one clarification. The tradition you've referenced, inheritance by eldest male, has no legal standing here. Margaret Bennett's will governs alone." Harold chuckled dismissively. "Legal standing isn't the point. Honor is. Margaret was raised in this house, under these portraits. She would never break the line." "You're sure about that, Uncle Harold?" Sarah's voice was quiet, but it carried. "I am the last of my generation. I know what was expected." Miss Shaw opened the will and read. Each asset, the lake house, the portfolio, the downtown property, was followed by the same phrase, "To my 2 children, Sarah and James, in equal shares, jointly and without distinction." No one moved. A cousin's mouth fell open. Aunt Margaret's hand withdrew. Harold sat motionless, the color draining from his face. "Impossible," he breathed. Sarah must have pressured her. Manipulated her during all those hours. I took her to chemotherapy, Sarah said, meeting his eyes. I sat with her through the sickness. I sorted her bills, managed her medications, held her hand when she was afraid. I didn't need to manipulate anything. I simply listened. James lifted his head, eyes rimmed red. I didn't know. I swear. I know what you thought, James. You thought Uncle Harold was telling the truth. We all grew up hearing the same story. Harold slammed his cane. The sound cracked like a gunshot. This family has survived by clear lines. The eldest son inherits. If we abandon tradition, we abandon everything. Miss Shaw, unhurried, withdrew a sealed envelope from the binder. Your sister left a personal letter, Harold. She instructed me to read it aloud if anyone invoked the tradition to divide the estate unequally. That condition has been met. Harold's knuckles whitened. She broke the seal and unfolded pages covered in Margaret's elegant handwriting. To my brother Harold, and to anyone who clings to the Bennett tradition. A stillness deeper than before filled the room. You have been lied to. We all were. The tradition you've defended your entire life was never about honor. It was a story invented by our great-grandfather to keep control after his daughter, our grandmother, proved herself a better steward than any of his sons. She was brilliant, capable, and a woman. So he rewrote history. He told everyone the estate could only pass through the male line, destroyed her reputation with whispers, and erased her from the family record. Our father believed the lie. You believed it. I almost believed it myself, until I found our grandmother's diaries in the attic. Harold's hands trembled. The cane rattled against the floor. Miss Shaw continued. In one entry, our grandmother wrote, "They will call it lineage, but it is only a lie repeated until it sounds like law. Underneath the honor and tradition, there is only fear and pride. I will not let that lie hurt my own children. I name them as equals, Sarah and James together, without distinction. That is my true lineage. Let it end the lineage of lies." The attorney set the letter down. It is dated, witnessed, and notarized. The will stands. Harold sagged, suddenly just an old man holding a cane for support. All these years, he whispered. I passed that lie to my own children. I disinherited my daughter because I believed it was duty. I thought I was protecting something sacred. No one comforted him. The silence was heavy, but not cruel. James stood, walked around the table, and knelt beside Sarah, taking her hand. I'm sorry. I never questioned it. I let him speak for me because it was easier. Sarah looked down at him, eyes glistening. You're questioning it now. That's what matters. Aunt Margaret raised her eyes to the stern portraits. We all believed a story, she said quietly. We never asked where it came from. That evening, the sun set low and golden over the cemetery. Sarah and James returned to their mother's grave, alone now. A fresh bouquet of white lilies had been left, perhaps by Aunt Margaret, without a note. James looked at Sarah, not away. She spent her last years making sure we wouldn't fight. Even over a lie older than she was. She didn't just leave us an inheritance, Sarah replied. She left us the truth. Something we could actually pass on. I'm going to teach my kids about our actual lineage. Grandmother's diaries, not the legend. No more lies. Sarah smiled faintly and withdrew a small, worn diary from her coat, the very one their mother had found. She opened it to a marked page and read aloud. The day I was erased from the family ledger, I promised myself one thing: a Bennett woman would one day set the record straight. She closed the diary and looked at the headstone. You did, Mom. You kept that promise. The wind stirred the oaks. Brother and sister stood together in the gathering dusk, letting the silence hold what words could not. In her quiet office, Miss Shaw filed the executed will. Beside it lay an old family ledger from the 1800s, its pages brittle. An entry had been violently scratched out, a woman's name obliterated by thick black ink, the final evidence of a century-long erasure. Now, beside that old wound, she placed a new page bearing two names, Sarah and James Bennett, equals. Night had fallen at the grave. A single candle flickered at the base of the headstone, sheltered by a small glass lantern. The flame was small but steady. Sarah's voice, quiet and sure, seemed to rise from the stillness. Lies can live for generations. They can shape families, twist legacies, and convince good people to do terrible things in the name of honor. But they don't last forever. Eventually, someone writes the truth down. And when the truth finally speaks, it doesn't need to shout. The candle burned on. The portraits in Harold's house hung in darkness, unchanged. But something had shifted. The lineage of lies had been broken. What remained was sturdier, quieter, something that could finally be called the truth.